Welcome everyone for another Legacy of the Valiant card discussion video. In this video we'll be talking about some other spells and traps in the set. Our first being Animado.
Onomatopoeia, basically a pun off onomatopoeia because of Yuma's syllable monsters. Because it's a card, you can only activate one of them per turn. Then you send one card from your hand to the graveyard, and you add up to two of these monsters from your deck to your hand, but you cannot add two from the same category. You can add one Zubaba monster, one Gagaga monster, one Gogogo monster, or one Dododo monster.
So basically it's a 2 for 2. You're discarding a card and activating this card in order to add two cards from your deck, but that adding any two, one from each of the categories monsters is pretty useful. Unfortunately, the monsters are not completely compatible, but Gagagas and Dododos sort of may work for some variation in Xyz summoning, at least.
But other than that, I mean, it can be it's pretty much a search for any of those cards if you just need one of them. And for some of them, sending a card from your hand to the graveyard can augment their summons. Like Gogogos, say you have a Golem in your hand and this card. You can activate this card, discard the Golem to add a Giant, and then you have your Xyz monster right there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be terrible in just Gogogos. You could, as Brad said, discard a Golem. You don't have to add two monsters. You can add up to two monsters. So, I mean, besides Gogos, I don't know that I would want to discard a card just to grab one card from my deck. But, I mean, I'd probably rather just go for more of a draw engine at that point. But searching can be good. If you want to try to mix them, I would probably go with the Gagagas and Dododos.
And if nothing else, I mean, for example, you could throw in Dododo Buster in a Gagaga or Gogogo deck, because Dododo Buster can special summon itself as a level 4 or be tribute summoned as a level 6, so you can use it for level 4s. So you could tech that into a Gagaga or Gogogo deck and have a second search for this card if you want. Next, we have the field spell, Xyz Override. Its effect is if an Xyz monster on the field would activate its effect by detaching its own Xyz material or materials, its controller can banish one card from their hand face down instead of detaching one of those Xyz materials. Each player can only use this effect once per turn.
So some things to note about this card, it's kind of like Freezedon in the fact that you can use a replacement for one of the Xyz materials for an effect, but on the downside, your opponent is able to utilize this card for their own Xyz monsters. So that is a bit of a shame, but they are also going to have to banish a card from their hand face down, which has its disadvantages as well.
So it's helpful for cards like we talked about Fairy Knight Ingunar earlier, or at least in an earlier video. This card can help that card use its effect more than once, because you can use one of its materials and one card from your hand instead of using up two of its materials in one go.
Yep, but then this card is going to be sent back to the hand, which of course can be activated right away again. But
if it were a continuous spell, I'm sure it would be used a lot more, but the fact that it's a field spell that allows your opponent to use it makes it kind of iffy.
Yeah, I guess I could also see it maybe in Photons for the Galaxion to try to get more get some more Galaxy Eyes out. Like if you use two for its effect to get one out from your deck and you have one in your hand, you could then banish a card from your hand to get out another one.
Basically, it's mostly helpful for cards that use two materials in one go, because then you can just use one of the materials and a card from your hand instead.
Yes, next we have Standoff, which is normal spell card, and its effect is target one face-up attack position effect monster on each side of the field. If both monsters are still face up on the field, negate their effects. Then, if both of their effects were negated by this effect, as long as those monsters are in face-up attack position, they cannot be destroyed by battle, are unaffected by other card effects. Also, they cannot attack or change their battle position.
So essentially what this card does is it makes two near useless monsters on each side. It makes one on each side of the field. About the only thing you can do with those monsters once this card's been used is to use them for a tribute or a synchro or an Xyz summon.
Yeah, so combining that with like some of the Dustin cards, would make it completely useless.
Pretty much what you're going to want to use this for is when your opponent has a weak attack position effect monster on their field. So you can target that monster, and that's a monster that can't be destroyed or change their battle position. So it's a monster you can continuously attack.
Yeah, but as we mentioned, they are still going to be able to use it for their tribute, synchros, exceed summon type of things. So you have to watch out for that.
And you also have to be careful if you use your monster for one of those summons, then their monster is freed up, because it's only as long as both of them are still face up on the field.
Yeah, so if they're able to Book of Moon one, or Swords of Concealing Light, or maybe if when this card is activated, they maybe use Forbidden Lance, then the card is not going to work at all.
Because as soon as you get one out of attack position, or you get it face down, then the effect is gone. Really, the only way I could see using this card, like, just in your own deck is if you have something like Nimble Musasabi that special summons itself to your opponent's side of the field. So you can guarantee they'll have a weak monster.
Yeah, unless they happen to have a weak monster on the field. Maybe it's more of a side deck card than a main deck card. If you happen to realize that they have like a bunch of weaker monsters, then you can side this in maybe, and I guess it could also be used in the sense that maybe you want your effect to be negated, like Beast King Barbaros.
Yeah, or like a Malefic monster.
Yeah, to get up to high attack for Beast King Barbaros, or to stay on the field without a field spell for some of those Malefics.
Yeah, like if you have a Malefic Cyber End and you just put that on the field and its effect is negated to face up attack position, then wow, there you've got a near insurmountable wall on your field.
I guess next we have the quick play spell card Shared Ride, which its effect is, after this card resolves, each time your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck or graveyard to their hand this turn, except by drawing them, you immediately draw one card, and you can only activate one Shared Ride per turn.
So basically, you get a card every time your opponent searches something out of their deck, or get something back from their end of their graveyard. So things like Monster Reincarnation.
Yeah. So as opposed to Stake, which sort of prevents the sort of adding cards from your deck thing, you get to draw cards and increase your advantage every time they add a card or cards from their deck or graveyard, which makes this card a bit more versatile.
Plus, it's a quick play spell. So
yeah, so you can chain it to their effects of adding a card from their deck to the graveyard. Say if they have a monster effect, say what has to add to their hand, right?
So something like Reinforcement of the Army or something like that.
Yeah, or Warrior Returning Alive.
Really, you'd chain it to, most decks have some sort of search card, so you'd chain it to whatever they use.
Yeah, and that is also going to stop them from
using anymore,
most likely, unless they want to try the new improved Shared Ride Challenge.
Alright, and then next we have the normal trap card Skill Prisoner, which its effect is you target one card you control this turn. When any monster effect resolves that targeted that card at activation, negate that effect. And then during either player's turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one card you control. This turn, when any monster effect resolves that targeted that card at activation, negate that effect.
So sort of similar to Breakthrough Skill?
Same sort of vein. Essentially, it's a protection of your own monsters from their effects instead of outright negating their effects.
Yes. So it is only effects that, resolve when targeting?
Yeah, any monster effect that targeted. Essentially, the clause about targeted that card at activation is to avoid you being able to use cards like Shift or something that changes the target to the card that's targeted with this card. So it has to be something that your opponent specifically targets your monster on.
Okay, but that does sort of prevent non-targeting effects from being negated.
And the nice thing is, unlike Breakthrough Skill, its effect is pretty much the same from the graveyard as well. So you can just target one card you control.
Yeah.
It's worded exactly the same. So it's essentially a trap you can use twice.
Now, do you have to target the same card you control?
No, target. It's literally the exact same text twice. So you banish it from the graveyard, and you get that same effect once more.
Yeah. So if they.
It does.
So you can use that on a different monster if need be.
You can't use it. You can't use it and then banish it to use it on another card because it has the clause of except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard. But you. It's really nice that it's effectively a trap card you can use twice.
And I think the most useful text on this card is during either player's turn, except during the turn you send to the graveyard, you can banish it. So that's pretty useful that you can use it when your opponent tries using effects on their turn. Maybe they use their tiramisu effect and start trying to shuffle your monsters back into your deck, and you can prevent one of the monsters.
Alright, and then next we have another normal trap card, Oath of Companionship. Its effect is if you control no monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck, take control of it until the end phase, but you can't special summon during the turn you activate that card.
So this kind of works well with the sort of new monarchy cards that we talked about, where if you have no extra deck or no cards special summon from the extra deck, in this case, you can start doing start using some nice cards. In this case, you can use your opponent's special summoned monsters from the extra deck and maybe tribute them for your monarch.
And use it for tribute summonings, so it's definitely a good card to use with the tribute summoning
Are
deck.
ritual summons considered special summons? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it is only until the end phase, but you are able to attack, so that's kind of a big thing, I think, too. You are able to actually attack with the monster. So finally we have Dustin Roller, which is a normal trap card as well, and its effect is to target one monster on the field. This turn it cannot be tributed or be used as a fusion, synchro, or exceeds material for a summon. If this set card you control is destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add one Dustin monster from your deck to your hand.
So basically this card is the bane of polymerization.
I mean,
but
they can still use polymerization and use two monsters from their hand.
Well, for example, if your opponent has at least one of their fusion material monsters on the field and they activate polymerization, you chain Dustin Roller.
Yeah.
That polymerization can't resolve.
Well, it could resolve if they have both their materials in their hand.
Yes. Well, if you have both materials in the hand, or if you had an alternate material, but if one of the required materials is on the field, you can use this to stop that.
Yeah.
And basically, just the fact that it's a trap card makes it so much more versatile, and you can chain it to any sort of attempt at summoning. Like, for example, your opponent, like, say, summons Goblinberg, you can chain this card to target Goblinberg, then your opponent can't exceed someone using them.
Yeah, so you are going to have to preemptively use this card, because it's not like they have to declare their synchro summon. Well, actually, they do have to declare their synchro summon, right?
Well,
so,
as they do it, you can't chain before they do it.
Yeah, so you're going to have to preemptively target one of their monsters with this card and say, hey, you can't use that.
Pretty much. So basically, you want to use this card as soon as they get the requirements for their summon out.
This card could actually probably be used in non-Dustin decks, really, just to
very easily,
just to sort of prevent your opponent from doing things. It's actually not a terrible side deck card.
Yeah, there's a rare deck that doesn't use any of those 4 summonings, so.
Yeah, Tribute, Fusion, Synchro, or Exceed. Watch out for them pendulum summons, though.
This is true.
Once that starts coming, Dustins, they're be old-fashioned. But I guess that's sort of it for the other spells and trap cards of Legacy of the Valiant. So please tune in next time for some more Legacy of the Valiant cards, and as always, leave your comments below on what you thought about these cards.
See you guys later.